checking that everything's working. I'm going to say hello to everybody in a moment. I'm just going to make sure that everything's working. I'm appearing everywhere. Yeah, let's just see that everything's on. I'm here. I'm visible, which is brilliant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know it's early, but I like doing these lives early. It works with my routine. Which is strange, I know, but this time of the day works for me. This time of the day works. I want to talk about this morning. I'm going to try and do it as sharp and as short as possible. But I want to talk about sales growth, revenue, getting clients, and some important metrics you should have in mind. So we've all got sales targets, right? We've all got a revenue target we've got to hit. Whether you're a solopreneur, salesperson, CEO, you've got sales targets to hit. Now, what I find fascinating is that actually a sales target number on its own is useless. It's absolutely useless. So having it, I'm a big believer in having key metrics displayed so it focuses your mind, not buried in a piece of paper, but actually having them up so that they focus your mind. But actually the sales target one, whilst it's useful to keep tabs, it's useful to focus the mind in terms of we need to do more work or we're doing well or all of that stuff. It's very good for that. It's actually useless as a metric because it doesn't force you to do anything with it. So I want to talk about what I call the catalyst numbers, and why every business should track the catalyst numbers. So catalyst numbers don't mean anything by themselves, but they lead to the sales number. So years ago, I was working on a project at Wembley Stadium, and we had to sell 40,000 tickets, and there was zero marketing budget. And we reverse engineered, sounds very clever, but we just estimated what were our catalyst numbers that would make this all work. In other words, how many people would have to visit the page? How many people would have to do this? How many people would have to do that? Now, if you're doing PPC, we weren't, by the way. If PPC provides you with all of these numbers, but you have to find them. Simple one, right? For you to hit a sales, let's just think about this. You've got to have sales calls, strategy calls, discovery calls, whatever you want to call them, you've got to have some, right? How many of those do you need to hit that sales number? Now, I know I'm talking real basic, but you'd be surprised how many small businesses do not do this. How many sales calls do you need per day, per week, per month to hit that number? Now, I'll come to different ways of doing that in a moment. So that's the first thing. How many sales calls do you need? Some of you might do proposals. How many proposals does that mean? But then we get into the more ambiguous numbers, which is the things that lead to leads, the things that lead to proposals. This is where it all gets a bit hazy and people don't really try and break these down. These can be things like how much attention do we need? How many eyeballs do we need to get a lead? Now, you might think, well, how do I measure that? You don't know until you start. But one of the things I do is look at how much attention, how much attention do we need? How much interest do we need to get leads, to get sales calls, to get eventual sales? Now, here's the great thing about those catalyst numbers. Every catalyst number has a very clear action. So to get attention, it tells you what you have to do. How do we get attention? And you can come up with ideas. How do we take that attention to interest? You can come up with ideas. How much interest do we need to get a lead? You can come up with ideas. These are key numbers that you should be looking at to go, okay, by themselves, they mean nothing, but actually collected together, the attention, the interest, the leads, the sales. The 3 or 4 metrics actually behind you getting a lead are probably the most important. And I'll tell you what happens. I see lots of businesses doing this, and I wrote about it a little bit over the weekend in an article. You can find it on my feed. A lot of people are so focused on the top final mile, as we call it, the final mile of numbers, that actually they don't do anything with the first mile. Yeah. So the first mile is all of the metrics that give you leads. The first mile. Everybody focus on the second mile. So here's what happens when you focus on the second mile. You have massive yo-yos. You have unpredictability in revenue because you are focused on the bottom end, the last stage. And so when you're trying to get people through that stage, there's attention, interest is irrelevant. You don't care about it. Yeah. But actually what you need to do is look at how do we move people through this process? If you don't want to be, cold calling, or you don't want to be hitting people up, selling aggressively, or it's not your style to do that, you've got to focus on that first mile of how do I get the attention? Now, if you need 1, 2, 3 clients a month, that's not a lot of attention you need, but you have to put in the work to build that. It's not a lot of attention to get 2, 3 clients a month, but you have to use those metrics to go, how am I going to take people down that process? How do I educate people about who I am, what I'm about, that I'm credible, that I have an answer for people? And then, okay, how do I get them to give me some of their interest? How do I get them to signal that they need my help? These are all key metrics that if you focus on them and actually track them, you can start to go, do you know what? We know exactly how much attention we need to get a sale. And then you can start to play and run your business by numbers, even though a lot of these numbers, social media numbers, don't mean anything. You might say, well, they don't mean anything. They do. They do when you actually put them into part of your business plan. When you start to put them in and go, okay, if I want to have an easy sell at the end, I have to do some front work to make it as much, build as much trust, as much belief, as much credibility as possible on the front end. So the back end sale is much easier and frictionless. I was talking to somebody who was getting 1,000 leads a month, 1,000 leads a month. And they said, we haven't converted any. So I went through, how are you getting them? These are people downloading PDFs, but have no interaction. There's no focus on pulling people through that whole process to the end. What happens is in big companies, marketing generate leads, pass them on to sales, and hopefully sales can convert some. There's no real joined up process that takes people from, okay, we want to sell this. Let's work all the way back. How do we get that attention and interest at this early stage by reverse engineering back from the product all the way to the beginning of this person doesn't even know us. In other words, taking a random person, getting them educated, getting them understanding you, getting belief in you, and moving them down that process. Some people would call it a funnel. I call it crowd to client, but that's what every business has to do. They have to take complete strangers through to being clients. And if you don't kind of measure those numbers between that, you can't predict. So I can predict if I do certain levels of activity on social media, we will get so much business. And that's based off metrics. That's based off impressions. That's based off downloads of stuff. I can tell you exactly how many downloads we need. Morning, Jason. Hope you're all right. I can tell you exactly how much our sales figures will be based on all of those things, because those initial first mile metrics actually unlock the second mile, which is the leads, the inquiries, and all of that stuff, and the sales proposals and what have you. So have a look. When you first do this, you will have no idea. Morning, Kevar. You will have no idea what these metrics mean. It's only as you consistently study them will you start to see the results. The other thing I would bear in mind is that, and we've seen this time and time and time again, what you're doing right now in September right? So it's September the 12th today. What you do this week with those first mile metrics will actually, you'll feel the benefit of them probably in about 4 to 5 weeks' time. The metrics, the first mile metrics that you get to this week, you'll probably start to see the fruit of them in 4 to 5 weeks' time. You need to think like that, especially if you're not in a kind of more, how can I say it, aggressive sales environment. Most of the stuff you're doing on social media is actually prepping people for down the road. So if we have a really great September in terms of social media, we know that October is going to be flying and November is going to be flying because we're benefiting from September. And your business is exactly the same. Your business is exactly the same. What you do on social media in the next month will impact you in 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks' time. That's just how this thing rolls. Whereas obviously, if you're pummeling out template sales pitches like by a robot on email and in direct messages, you feel the benefit of that immediately, but there is no residual, there is no compounding. It's like if I hit somebody at the right time, in the right moment, in the right atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, I'll get a result. So that's why cold and direct outreach is so appealing, is because you get what essentially is low results but instant. But once that result's delivered, it's delivered. There's no compounding. The stuff I do on social media, people say, Dean, surely would you not prefer to do cold outreach? I don't want to do cold outreach. I don't want to do it. I don't think it's value. I don't think it's a good way to build it. You get a lot of stick for it. I'd rather do this stuff. We'll do newsletters and things like that and promote events and stuff like that. But we don't want to do that way. But if you don't want to do that way, you have to build a plan and know that your impact today, the things you do today, you're going to feel the benefit of in a month or 2 months' time. Now, the great thing is that means the more effort you put in right now today with these key catalyst metrics, your first mile metrics, the things that make everything else possible, that get you the interest, that provoke people to DM you in, that decide to download that PDF, that come to your webinar, that do all of these things. That's all built off what you do right now. No amount of DMing can build brand. No amount of cold email can actually build trust. Yeah, it's just really difficult because you're just hitting people up and hoping they see it. But this is where you can make the sales process easier. What I do is I help you get the make the sales process easier, because you're, as we call it, priming your market so that they see you, understand you, and a lot of the sales friction down the road is gone. Why? Because they've seen you in their feed. They've seen you knocking around. They've been to one of your webinars. They've downloaded some of your resources. They've done some of this stuff that's basically disarmed a lot of the sales friction, taken away a lot of the sales friction. But there is these first mile metrics that on their own mean nothing. On their own mean nothing, but actually connected up to your sales process. So the whole thing, start to finish, is all joined up. It's all for the same purpose, actually mean absolutely everything. If you don't deal with your first mile metrics, you have to get very aggressive in the final mile, because now you have to get leads quickly. You have to turn them around. There's no trust built, so you have to do it. And that's where the volume game comes in, where it's more about scale to hit those numbers, because the chances of a conversion are really, really low. Okay. Good morning, everybody. That's my little rant for today. Look, have a great week. Don't dismiss some of the, what we call vanity metrics on social media. They are vanity metrics unless you've got a joined up process to sell what you do. And you add value to build an audience. You add value to build trust. You be yourself so people connect with you. Because if people connect with you, they buy into you or they don't. So you effectively, a lot of your social media is pre-qualifying people. So those first mile metrics connected up to your sales process actually make the final mile, the leads, the inquiries, the proposals, and the sales possible. But you've got to join them up. Right, I'm going to sign off. Have an awesome week. I know, there's a lot of stuff still going on with the Queen, and that's going to be on till Monday the 19th, which is when the official funeral service is. But try and make the most of the week. We've got a rough old ride in this country the last couple of years, and it's problem after problem after problem. But we don't have to be bound by the problems. We don't have to be dragged into it. We resist being dragged into some of this stuff. But yeah, it's sad about the Queen, isn't it? Anyway, guys, have a good week. Make the most of the week. Remember, what you do this week on social media has an impact in 4, 5, 6 weeks' time. So make sure it's worth the effort. Put the effort in, make it worth something for you this week. See you later.